Howdy, folks. Welcome to Cattle Trails Showcase for September. We're mighty glad to have you with us. I'm Ron Wilson, Fort Lariat. Pleased to be your host. We welcome members and guests of the International Chisholm Trail Association who are participating or watching on YouTube. As we've done in recent months, we want to start our program with a Western trivia question. So we invite you to go in the chat and type in the answer to this question. What was the name of Lone Ranger's partner? Not his horse, but his human companion, his partner. So Lone Ranger and who? And bonus points if you can also put in there the name of the actor who played that character. So we invite you to get in the chat, type in your name, location, and the name of the Lone Ranger's partner, and extra credit if you can name the character, the actor who played that character. And I'm just kidding about extra credit. There's no points or prizes. But we invite you to join in the fun. There you go, good answers. The purpose of the Cattle Trails Showcase is to continually highlight the communities, attractions, historical elements, museums, and the other elements along the Chisholm or the Western Cattle Trail. The showcase is brought to you by the International Chisholm Trail Association, of which Dennis Katzenmeyer is president. Dennis has joined us. Michael Grauer is vice president, Nancy Lawrence is secretary, and Mary Lou Rivers is treasurer. And we are excited to report that the annual Chisholm Trail Conference will be Friday, October 15 in Wichita and in hybrid format. So you will have the option of coming to the Old Cowtown Visitors Museum in the historic Delano district of Wichita and joining us in person, or there will be the option of participating on Zoom and participating virtually. The conference registration information is in the process of being finalized. The website is, we've got a crew working on it as we speak. And that website is chisholmtrailassn.com. And if you've been receiving notices from us, we will send an email notice to you and let you know when the registration info is up and operative. The chair of our Cattle Trails Showcase is Lonnie Stephen. I'm going to ask Lonnie to introduce our special guest speaker today. Lonnie.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Ron. Before I introduce Kelly, I'm going to read back kind of some highlights that we talked about as we arranged this program. And although the cattle trails ceased, as a result of barbed wire and the tick fever, the cattle industry continued to be the anchor of towns that the drives established. And our program today is a living example, that one of the remaining living examples of the national stockyards. And Kelli Payne is the, I believe, president. I should have got the exact title, but she'll introduce us in a better format of Oklahoma National Stockyards, which operates the world's largest feeder and stocker cattle market. And although other stockyards have closed due to urban sprawl and being replaced with retail and housing, the ones that left are true living history. And we're going to hear about the Oklahoma National Stockyards today. Kelly, go ahead.
Thank you all very much for the opportunity. Can everyone hear me okay?
Sounds
Great.
good.
Okay, we, as in traditional Oklahoma fashion, we have wind today. So I'm going to do my best to kind of keep the wind from feeding back into the phone. It's just a pleasure and honor to have the opportunity to talk to you all today about our wonderful heritage here. And we are doing things a little bit different today. I sent some photos to Ron. We're going to start out just kind of explaining what you're seeing on the screen, and then we'll go into the tour. So this is the arch leading into the Oklahoma National Stockyards. We were founded in 1910. And that arch has literally been there since 1910. The sign has changed a little bit over time, but it is one of the most photographed spots in Stockyards City, and we're very proud of it. I know I've been in this position a little over 2 years. We did have to do some work on the sides where the pedestrian traffic can walk through. But as far as I know, it's only had to be worked on a handful of times, one time due to a gentleman driving a dump truck through or underneath it, and the dump truck, the bed was raising. So you can imagine the mess that left. But we're very proud of that arch, and countless loads of cattle and tourists have both passed underneath there, and it's just very iconic and very special to Oklahoma City. So we'll move on to the next one. This was taken, I actually took this photo, it would have been last fall, and those semis, that's on a Sunday at 11:15 in the morning, and those semis are loaded with cattle. We have them lined up. They're fixing to proceed to unload. That's going to be about, you can see the arch kind of in the background there. So it's going to be west of the arch. Those trucks went on down to, that's Exchange Avenue. They proceeded down to Agnew, which is the north-south corridor, and wrapped around onto Agnew all the way back almost to I-40 that early in the day. So when you have a truck line that long on a Sunday morning, you know you're going to be hooked up for quite some time. I believe that day we had about 15 or 16,000 head to start Monday's sale. So made for a lot of sleepless nights, but a lot of great photo opportunities. So moving on to the next one. This is our auction ring. The auction ring is actually in what was our old feed barn, and I'll show you that on the walking tour. It's been completely redone. We went to live auction in 1961. We have about 40 to 50 buyers here, pretty much on any given Monday. And then obviously folks that want to come in and watch their cattle sell as well. I have a staff of 6 that manages the sale just strictly in that ring area. Behind that door, behind the auctioneer, we'll have another staff of 4. And then when the cattle exit, I'll have another staff of 10. That's the stockyard staff. So it's a very busy place. It's very loud and it moves very, very fast. On any Monday, we'll average about 700 head of cattle an hour that go through that ring. So if you blink, you're probably gonna miss a draft of cattle. And we'll move on to the next one. This is our most iconic event that we have every year. The business district in front of Stockyards City, as I mentioned. This is the intersection of Agnew and Exchange, the core of the business district. And every October we have Stockyards Stampede. We've been doing that for this will be our 25th year. And I heard you mention the Chisholm Trails, your meeting October 15th. So wrap that up on the 15th and then come down here October 16th for our Stampede. Those Longhorns belong to the Chain Ranch that some of you have probably heard of. And the gentleman that put those Longhorns together is actually an order buyer out here every Monday. So his heart is very near and dear to the Stockyards. You can see the businesses behind that. Langston's Western Wear, Rodeo Cinema, Little Joe's Boots. There's a great little shopping district down there that's also on the National Register of Historic Places. And as we mentioned yesterday in kind of our pre-tour, you won't find a chain restaurant or store here. They're all small business owners, locally owned and very unique. So, but we actually were able to just catch those Longhorns at a unique spot whenever they do their procession downtown. We do get compared to Fort Worth from time to time, which is flattering, but also a little bit aggravating too. We get asked if we do the Longhorn drives twice a day, and we do not. One of the things that's really important to us with the amount of cattle that we run here, if we have cattle out on the street, we have a problem. It's not something to be celebrated, with the exception of when these fantastic Longhorns come to town. They're also utilized in our Christmas parade and our St. Patrick's Day parade. Just fantastic animals, and he'll bring about 3 dozen or so down for folks to really enjoy. So we wanted to share that with you, and we'll move on to the next one. This is the pride and joy. I may get a little bit choked up talking about these folks. This is our Oklahoma County Mounted Patrol, and they are just a fantastic group of folks. I'm sure in some of the towns that you've been showcasing, it's more common to see a patrol that is on horseback. It's very unique though, as far as in Oklahoma, to have that. They do a fantastic job. They're great ambassadors for our Oklahoma County Sheriff's Department. They always carry the American flag and our state flag with the utmost of pride, and we feature them with every parade. We do have to put the Longhorns in front of them just because it's such an iconic scene for us, but the Mounted Patrol follows close behind, and they're always here to lend a hand for us. Usually if you do a quick search on Facebook or even follow the Oklahoma County Mounted Patrol, they do a lot of outreach. On a Saturday, you'll generally see them on horseback in front of Cattleman's Steakhouse, talking with tourists and residents alike. So they're a great liaison for us to have, as well as keeping our residents and tourists protected down here. And I think there's one more. Yes. Boy, this is another just true gem in Stockyards City at Agnew and Exchange. This is the Heading to Market statue that Harold Holden did for our centennial in 2010. This is a beautiful, beautiful statue. It sits, we took this from a lower angle. It's actually on a granite base that's going to be about almost 6 foot tall, captivating, and we keep it lit at night. In the fall, late November, we do a Christmas tree lighting for the district, and that is right there at that statue. Just a fantastic and very moving piece. We're just thrilled to have a piece from Mr. Holden in our district. Our district director with the Main Street District out front reached out to Mr. Holden. We're hoping to honor him soon for his contributions. And he had shared with her that this was one of his most favorite pieces to work on. We had some new banners done for the district, and we actually used the same a photo of the statue in that. We're just so honored to have it, and a lot of folks like to take their photographs in front of that as well. So a lot of iconic things in the district, besides just the history of the entire area, but a lot of great places to photograph with very unique histories. And was that all of them, Ron? There we go. Okay, super. So if you all will work with me here, we're going to flip screens back and forth as we go along. I'll share a little bit about the history of the Stockyards. 1907 was when Oklahoma became a state, and shortly after statehood, here in Oklahoma City, the Chamber of Commerce was responsible for economic development. And so they reached out. They were looking for a major industry to bring to Oklahoma City. Forgive me, you may have some truck noise today. So our Chamber of Commerce leaders reached out to packing plant owners in Kansas City and St. Louis and Chicago and Omaha, and invited them to come down and see for themselves what Oklahoma City had to offer. And it's hard to think with this fast-paced world that we live in today, and this booming city that we have today, of what Oklahoma City would have looked like shortly after statehood. We are bordered here at the Stockyards by a river to the north, but that had not been tamed yet. Of course, no interstates. I-40 is also on the north side of us, but none of that was in existence. And so from where I'm standing, it's hard to imagine what this all looked like with grassland or trees on it. But they sent letters up north to recruit them to come down, much like in your community. If you're trying to recruit a distribution center today or a Dollar General, you're going to want to get those folks down there and offer them some incentives. And so some of these packers came down, and the fable is that in downtown there was a whopping one automobile at the time. And so this would have been about late 1908, early 1909. And if you think about the way that folks dressed then was a lot different than today. So you have these dapper gentlemen in their hats and suits, and they all hopped in the one automobile. And downtown, and I'll show you on our walking tour how close our proximity is to downtown. It took them 2 days. We're about 2 miles as the crow flies, but it took them 2 days to get here. The car got buried down in quicksand. They had to cut through plum thickets. And as a city leader at that time, I would have just been mortified. Here these fellas are all dressed up and having to push this old jalopy out. But when they got over here to this area, they liked what they saw. And these businessmen knew that they were in the driver's seat. If you come here today on a sale day, you'll see cowboy hats, much like the photo of the auction ring. And even from the catwalk, most of the people that are working in the alleys will have a cowboy hat on, boots, spurs, etc. But these were businessmen. And some of it, if you think about where they were from, Chicago, Kansas City, there was some mafia ties. So they had control and they knew that they could employ a lot of people. What they demanded from Oklahoma City at that time, sorry, the wind's really kicking up on me now. What they demanded at that time was 5 years, no taxes. That's pretty impressive. I'd like to have that now. They wanted water and sewer ran right to that arch that we saw in the photo. They wanted a trolley line that ran from downtown to here to get people moved. They wanted a fire station close. They wanted 300,000 gallons of water free every day for 5 years. It takes a lot of water to process cattle. And they also wanted cash, $300,000. And they wanted that paid, half of that when they opened their doors and half of it, I believe, in 6 months later. So pretty impressive economic development package if you think about that in today's figures. So, but they showed within very short order, there was about, I think there were 67,000 folks or so living in downtown. And within very short order, about 8,000 of those people were working here in, at that time, it was called Packing Town. So at that time, everything was done private treaty. When cattle and hogs and sheep were brought in here, they were just sold to the packers, and the packing houses were all right around this area. I'm going to show you where I'm currently standing is at where you would load out, or excuse me, unload cattle. So the pots that I showed you that were backed up down the street. So this is our unloading. And that's a very, very well photographed area too of the Welcome to Oklahoma National Stockyards. We have 8 areas where you can unload semis, and then we also have behind me now is what we call the drive-in, and that's for bumper pulls and goosenecks. But what's interesting about this location, I'm going to flip this screen around. This is also where when the cattle were first coming in here, or all livestock, they came in by cattle drive and rail, and I'm actually standing on the rail. As many of you know, you're not allowed to take out without many discussions with the railroad to take out any of their rails. So it's really fascinating to me. I think about how many people come in here and unload cattle and have no idea. We leave a little bit of it exposed, but not enough for there to be a safety issue. But how fantastic that those cattle would have came in the same area that we're also using today with the big semis. So, and I'll kind of turn around. So this is where the pots would unload. We may actually get one today. Yesterday on our trial run, we had a fella driving through here. And then this is what we call that drive-in, or drive-through. And then I'm just going to kind of keep walking. I know gravel parking lots are not that exciting. So we had, like I said, we did private treaty through, actually we did private treaty all the way through the 80s. But those in the 60s is when we went to live auction. And that changed everything. A lot of these barns at Kansas City, St. Louis, folks like that, if they did not go to live auction at an appropriate time, they didn't survive. It's very exciting and humbling to me to be able to be serve in this capacity as president of the Stockyards. I'm the sixth president in 111 years, first female, but I grew up here. I'm 45, and when I was 5 years old, I started coming to the yards with my father. He had a commission company. These commission companies were the last barn left that has them. We have 9, and it's like having 9 cell barns under one roof. You'll see this sign here for Western Commission Company as we're coming up here. This is an area, I'm jumping around a little bit just because I can't walk as fast as I talk. This arch here, gateway that says ONSY at the top, this was used, is still used today. Obviously, we've gone in with pipe. This was where cattle were brought on drives. And so it's fun for me to think as I'm standing here, you know, what did that look like when longhorns were coming in before the urban sprawl kind of took over? You know, what was that like? And I don't have anybody left to tell me what it was like, but I think it would be fascinating. It's fun to think about. I also wanted to show you before we go up on, this is the catwalk. and we'll take a little tour down that. While I'm standing here, the Stockyards itself was 42 acres of pens. We're actually on 108 acres is what we still own. The entire floor of this Stockyards is all brick. So you can imagine, so we'll have about 50, probably about 75 acres of brick total down here. And I joked with the gentleman yesterday with Ron and Lonnie about if I had time, and I just need to make the time to write a book called If These Bricks Could Talk. They've probably seen more money made and lost than most people have in their life. But it's just fascinating to me that all of that has still existed. We try and maintain that. We've gone back in with pipe, but we've also maintained some of the original wood pins just to give it that flavor. I want to show you before we go up on the catwalk with the rail that I was showing you. This was the rail bed. And that train, the train would come down and the cattle would be unloaded onto this rail bed, and it made a horseshoe around the yards, and then they would go down into the pens. And I think it's fantastic that we've been able to save this and keep it from falling into the dust. You see a lot of kids kind of playing on it. We've seen folks have kids take senior pictures, wedding photos, engagement photos. So it's just pretty fun. But this is still in existence. The trains would come in, the cattle would unload, and then those trains would circle back around and wait for the bought cattle to be loaded back onto them to go to other packing houses. Unless the cattle were coming to a packing house that was really close. Some of them could walk right across the street. There was one packing house on the corner, and I think we can see it from the Zoom, that had they had a wooden bridge that went to the packing plant. It was 3 stories tall, and on the cattle were marched over the bridge led by a Judas goat, and they were harvested on the top floor. And as the carcass was further fabbed all the way down, it just kind of kept going downstairs. So a little bit different deal. We're going to go up this catwalk of steps. As a kid, I would run this catwalk, and I realized that the older I get, that's not much fun to do anymore. And I've developed kind of a strange fear of heights, so forgive me. This catwalk is probably another area that's well photographed. This dude is 937 feet 4 inches long, and I had the opportunity to measure that whenever we put new boards in a couple of years ago. But it goes on for a long way. This is the main entrance to the cell barn. I'll kind of span around through here. The water tower in the background would be the west boundary of the pens. So that's quite a deal. The 2-story red brick building is the auction house. So you're gonna hoof it quite a ways to get there. Are we getting wind feedback, Ron?
You're okay.
Okay, good. Thank you. So that sale barn, you think about your local auctions. A lot of times the barns are right there in front of the pens, and whenever they went to live auction, they decided to just leave it like it was, and they just converted it from a hay and feed barn to an auction house. But you saw the photos, it looked pretty nice. And as we kind of spin around here, forgive me with this wind, I'm going to try to do my best. All of the pens have feeders, water tanks. Not much has changed. We have our feed towers to the north. Behind those feed towers, I kind of like to brag on us a little bit. That is Murphy's Compost. We have a partnership with them where when we scrape these pens, we take the manure over there and they compost it and sell it. I'm not sure how many parks, how many flower beds that we've touched from our cattle byproduct here, but that's kind of a fun thing to think about too. We have I-40 to the north. The river is right in front of that. And there's going to be a little industrial park. But I wanted to show you our proximity to downtown. There's the downtown skyline. So it's certainly not very far at all. We are still to this day unincorporated. We have to take care of our own water lines, sewer lines, electric lines. But you think about how close we are to that interstate and downtown, and I wonder how many folks don't even know we're down here. The further we get removed from agriculture. The two brick buildings, I know the sun may be a little bit challenging. There's two brick buildings there. Those are going to be to my southeast. Those are two of the four original horse and mule barns. And I was sharing with Ron and Lonnie yesterday that there's a photo in Cattleman Steakhouse there in the district of the Italian government buying horses and mules in 1918. And the caption says they're buying horses and mules for wartime. And for the longest time, I thought, wow, that's really incredible that we would have some of our, horses and mules were going over there to go into battle. And then it occurred to me one day they were buying them to feed their residents. You don't hear that anymore these days. It's obviously a lot more acceptable in foreign countries than it certainly is in the United States. But each of those 9 commission companies that I spoke of, we've had as many as 18 here at one time. They all have a dedicated set of pens. Everything is done on a grid system. You might can see some numbers on the pens. So you'll have a 7 out, the block 7, pin 27. And when we yard cattle, that we put that on the ticket. So we always kind of know where everything's at. The little red shack, those are scattered about through the yards. Those are still used today. That's where the deals used to be made with the buyers. And they're not really used for that anymore. They're used more to duck out of a rainstorm or warm up, if it's really cold out. But we had at one time, I believe, 16 two-story shacks around here. And we have one left, and we've done our best to maintain it. It's really cool. I'm very proud to have it. These pens, as a kid, I remember had another plank on these on the top that sat more like a walkway. There were little catwalks that crisscrossed the yards, but there were areas where those planks, when I was a kid, they were still there, and that's where the buyers stood to make the deals over the pens of cattle with the commission men. And then a courier would take that information back to the main office in the exchange building and would get those cattle made up. To the south, the covered buildings, those were the old hog and sheep barns. The only thing that has been done, those were originally wood, then replaced with metal. We no longer sell hogs or sheep here due to the vertical integration of that portion of our industry. We are in the process, and have been for quite some time, of taking out all the old pens so that we can have more of an entertainment type venue, a pavilion type setting for horse shows or any kind of swap meets, tractor shows, different things, vendors, where vendors can set up. So we're really excited about the opportunity for that. The red building.
Kelly, I'm having a little more trouble hearing you.
Okay. Yeah, it is super windy up here. I don't want to not be on the catwalk, but I may have to step down into an alley.
You're all right now.
Okay. The red brick building, there's the southwest, that was the Wilson plant. And that's where the cattle, the overhead bridge was, where the cattle were marched across and led by the Judas goat many, many moons ago. But they're all around us were big packing houses, Morris, Armour, Swift. And those started going away in the 60s. As Lonnie and Ron mentioned, urban sprawl, things like that started pushing in. We've all heard the NIMBY, not in my backyard. So that made the push for some of those folks to go to out to West Texas and obviously southern Kansas and even as far up in Nebraska. So just a lot of changes with that. Packing plants, as we saw last year with the pandemic, sometimes it's difficult for them they can't just shut down and upgrade. So that was also part of the problem too. When you're processing cattle 6 days a week, there's not much time to slow down and do the things that you need to do to update your system. So some of it we just couldn't update quick enough. But one of the things that's really impressive to me, the Stockyards stayed. So in speaking with the guys yesterday, the economic impact of this area, if you think about all of the years that we've been in business and the many things that I'm going to scroll around through here. We're doing some repairs today on the catwalk. But some of the things that were really important to me with this position was making sure that the city understood. Is there a lot of wind on this one now? Okay. You're gonna have to look at me for a minute. I'm gonna try and get off this catwalk and get to a different location. Maybe show you a few other things. But the economic impact was really important. I mean, 111 years of existence. We already spoke about horses going to Italy. You think about how hard that is even today to get over there. But to reach foreign countries, the tourism was really big here prior to the pandemic. 200,000 tourists a year were coming through. You wish you could reach them all and share the story. But we also have this year let's see, today's September 10th. So we are a host for layover cattle or horses. Say you live in, I don't know, Nevada, and you're buying a bull from Virginia, or you're buying a horse from the East Coast. You would typically, whether it's a gentleman or lady pulling a trailer or it's a semi load, that livestock cannot just go straight there. They need to stop and rest. So we're a layover spot for about 5,000 to 6,000 head of cattle and horses a year. So with that being a layover spot, then where cattle are sold from, we get a lot of eastern and southeastern cattle here besides Texas and Oklahoma and Arkansas. And then where cattle are bought and delivered to, we've already touched 43 states and Canada already this year, which is pretty amazing. So in talking about economic impact, you certainly don't want to lose sight of that. It's a lot of tax dollars being dropped, fuel tax, different areas. Say you've got a load of cattle coming from Florida, to hear that trucker's going to stop and eat and put expensive diesel in his tank and maybe buy something for the little lady back home. So the city has been very receptive to what we do. They're a great partner. We are actually right now undergoing, we just completed a master plan for redevelopment of the entire area to add a better, healthier retail mix, maybe a hotel. That master plan should be going live, I'd say, in the next few weeks. So just a lot of exciting things happening down here. I shared with the gentleman yesterday, there's always some fun little tidbits that happen. Back last fall or late summer, one of my guys called me on a Friday and he said, "What do I feed these buffalo?" And I thought, what on earth are you talking about? Because my first concern with that is buffalo and brucellosis. And he sent me a picture of a cow with 7 calves out here in one of these pens. And okay, now we're out of the wind. So he sent me a photo of it. And I said, well, my gosh, they have health papers. And he sent me a photo of the health papers and they were Ted Turner's. So that was kind of a cool thing to have buffalo housed here, even for a short amount of time, that belonged to somebody pretty famous. So it's a great thing. We've had, you never know who you're going to see out here. We had an opportunity to host USDA Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, a few years ago in a partnership with our Oklahoma Secretary of Agriculture, Secretary Reese was in position at that time. And I remember thinking, I sat next to Sonny Perdue on the auction block, that if I died that day, I would die very, very happy, because I was a pretty big fan of his. So, but just incredible. We've had, oh gosh, there at Cattleman's, there's a steak named after George Bush. He's been in there and eaten steak. And now that we have the Thunder team down here, every now and again, you'll catch a NBA star in there. So we're just very proud of all of our heritage here and how it all works. We do not offer at this time the ability to buy cattle online. With the nature of the multiple commission companies, it would make it pretty challenging. Most of the buyers that buy here are bonded through the packers at USDA packers and stockyards, and they actually have their own staff to catch cattle once they go through the ring. So it's a little bit different. You are able to watch us live. LMA, for Livestock Marketing Association, lmaweb.com. You can go and register just to be a viewer. And it's not just us. There's multiple auctions across the United States. I tune in and watch other ones from time to time just so we can see what everybody else is doing. But it's just been a real privilege to be in this position in the 2.5 years that I've been here. I guess I was a liaison prior to that for about 13 months, I was asked to come in and promote the yards. This was never on my radar screen. I'm a farm kid, live about 20 minutes from here. We're a land run family. So I'm 5th generation cow-calf producer, and that's humbling in and of itself. And then to be asked to step into this role was incredible. But our numbers have steadily increased each year. Last year we sold just under 436,000 head of cattle, and we're on track to sell about 450,000 this year. We've already surpassed the 300,000 head mark. And as we get into the fall and winter, it's dry right now, so it's a little challenging to try and get winter wheat put in. Labor Day is kind of the target for getting winter wheat planted. We may miss that just due to lack of moisture, and it's really, really hot for the next few days. But usually those cattle start coming to town in the fall and winter. We'll start having those 12, 13, 14, 15,000 head runs that are not fun, but it's viable. They got to sell them somewhere, and I certainly hope that they'd always choose us for their marketing needs. That big run continues through January and into February. Once those cattle are coming off wheat, the target date is to kind of get all those cattle off wheat by the middle of March. And then it kind of slows down for us a little bit. Our work here is never done. We're constantly, I'm down now behind the loadout. I'll flip this screen around. Forgive my finger there. So you got a great, you weren't kidding. I did get to get down here in the pens today, get my boots sturdy. It is dry right now. We did not have a sale over Labor Day. It's pretty quiet. It's a little bit different. So the cattle would be unloaded here from the goosenecks and bumper pulls, or this is the back side of where the cattle pots would unload. And then this is what we call this the main alley. And down each of these is a way to get into each of those commission companies' blocks and pens. So just walking the brick. If I knew how much it costs to ship bricks, I'd bundle them up and send each one of y'all one of them. That'd be a fun little tourism piece. But we did come back in and strengthen all of this in pipe. A lot of it's for the safety of livestock. The entire perimeter fence is the same height, just to keep any accidents, hopefully, from happening. But as you can tell, it's a large place. The summers here are really, really hot. There's usually not a lot of wind down here actually on the bricks. So it can get to be a scorcher. We do have, you can probably see it here, there's sprinklers set up in all of these pens to add some comfort for the cattle. As I mentioned before, water tanks in every pen, double feeders. So just kind of it's a neat place. I'm open for questions, or if I'm forgetting anything. I know Ron and Lonnie were with me yesterday, so I may have missed something as quick as I'm going through here.
You've done a great job, Kelli, and we'll ask folks to either unmute and ask a question or post a question in the chat. Would you say a word more about Stockyards City? What is there?
Oh, absolutely. And I did mention I was going to talk about that. So thank you for the reminder. So Stockyards City was placed on the National Register in 1978. And that also included a portion of the stockyards. At that time, we had our original exchange building here. It actually burned in 79, but we were able to get that on the National Register. Stockyard City Main Street was founded. We became a Main Street community in 1992. We were the first urban Main Street in the state of Oklahoma. And it's pretty cool to have, here at Yar, all just cowboying it and westerning it up, and then right in the middle of the big city. But Cattleman's Restaurant has been here since the very start. As I mentioned before, the shops, there's no chains down here. I'll highlight a few of them. Oklahoma Native Art and Jewelry, Yolanda White Antelope is the proprietor of that. She's one of a handful of potters that still does horsehair pottery, where horsehair is applied at the last when it's in the kiln. It is absolutely stunning. She has wonderful pieces, beautiful jewelry. Of course, Cattleman's Steakhouse. We also have McClintock's Saloon and Shop House. That's new. It's very interesting. When you step in there, you feel like you've really stepped back in time. A lot of heavy and ornate woodwork and chandeliers. It's a great place to get a drink or have a a higher. It's a higher price point than Cattleman's. Just a fantastic addition to Stockyards City, and complete with the scantily clad lady painting over the bar. So you feel like you're in a saloon. So then we also have Stockyards Sarsaparilla, which is the old fashioned sodas and candies and some tourism items, t-shirts and shot glasses, all that fun stuff. Made in Oklahoma products. Little Joe's Boots. He carried on the tradition of his father with that store. Shorty's Cowboy Hattery. You've probably heard of it. Shorty Kroger. She is actually going to be inducted into the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame, I believe, this year. So we're very proud of that. We are also home to the Rodeo Opry, and they've been, gosh, I'm trying to think how long they've been playing down here. Probably over 2 decades. Been around a lot longer than that. They do a fantastic show on Saturday nights. National Saddlery, Langston's. If you can't find a pair of boots down here, there's something wrong. So it's really a lot of fun. We also have the National Museum of Horseshoeing, which is incredible. If you get a chance to go through there, it is really nothing short of amazing. Fabulous collection, fabulous historical pieces. We also have the Oklahoma Rattlesnake Museum, which I will not go into, but Carl does a fantastic job. He's very passionate about explaining how, that some of these he does have some endangered species in there. He has a big Galapagos tortoise, which I'm okay with that, but the rest of it, I don't think so. But education is really important to him. And we also are the headquarters for the International Pro Rodeo Association, which is very special to us. We are right adjacent to the fairgrounds. And so it's nice that we have the equine interest down here, as well as the cattle interest and the obviously the history. So I would love to have any of you come down. Lonnie and Ron have my information. Feel free to give me a call, shoot me an email. Love to have you come down, show you around. I won't make you sort any cattle, but I'd certainly, Dennis is asking, where's the beef?
Coming this weekend, maybe.
There you go. So we will probably have, I would expect us to be anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 head of cattle this coming Monday, maybe a little bit more, with us being closed over Labor Day. It's kind of hard to tell. The market's strong right now, which is exciting. You're not seeing a reduction in cost at the grocery store, but it may just be a sign of the times. I'm hopeful that things will get more in line with each other. But just an incredible place. Yes, sir.
There's a question in the chat from Michael Grauer. How much of the historic stock pens or other support architecture or buildings remain? I think you touched on this. How much of the original buildings are still there?
Oh gosh, that is a good question. So we would have, I'd say probably just about a quarter. I was able to get my hands on a map, and you all would find this fascinating. From the last time it was updated was 1938, and it still showed like the ice houses, little hardware shacks. Now this would have been the entire area. So Stockyard, even going into Stockyards City out to May Avenue. So a lot of those smaller buildings have just gone away. We have on the southwest side two warehouses that are original. In fact, one of the building on the north side of that did fall down, but they saved the rest of it, and you can still see it's painted on there where maize, corn chops, and bran. So you could tell where they were storing feed when the other building was still in existence. The two horse and mule barns that are still here are in fantastic shape. One of them has been retrofitted. We actually have a company that leases those buildings for electrical distribution. But the other one is entirely original. And it's, Mike, I know you're wanting to go on a tour. So since you're close to me, we can probably arrange that. The catwalk has been here since the start. That is, I'm very passionate about saving that. We had to have some work done over 4th of July to reinforce some of the footings underneath it, because it's just it's important, obviously, to get people to the barn, but it's iconic. So there's not much, I mean, but probably about a quarter of the buildings. but we would certainly, if we, one of the things too, I would mention for the district, the Stockyards City area, or Cowtown as I still call it, that has an urban design overlay, which will protect us from any new construction that happens. Has got to be historically accurate. The tallest building we ever had in Stockyards City was 3 stories tall, and that there is a limit now. So if you want to build something new, it can't go over that height. The brick has to be a certain color. In fact, most of the residential area, the houses still exist that were originally plotted here, or platted in 1910, and they're very small, narrow lots. So there's a push to save all of that, even with this master plan. We certainly don't want to discourage any kind of building, but we'd like to keep the flavor and true authenticity of the area as much as we possibly can.
Kelly, there's one more quick question in chat. During your Stockyard Stampede, did the Longhorns come through the historic gate, or what's the route?
They do. And that's a fantastic question. So this main drive that I just walked down with you all, there's a large pen where they're housed. And then they start about 9:50. They start pushing them out of the Stockyards proper and down to Exchange, and they will pass underneath that gate going east, and they go through that Agnew and Exchange intersection down east about another 3 or 4 blocks, and they'll hold them for a minute, and then they'll turn them back and finish out the procession coming back west, and they'll go south a little bit. So we give folks plenty of opportunity to photograph them. For whatever reason, I have always been distracted doing something else and have never, ever gotten a photo of them coming underneath that arch. So it's my hope that I'm not distracted this year and can get that shot and hopefully share it with you all.
Kelly, you have done a fantastic job. Thank God you didn't miss a single step while making that tour. Yeah, a virtual round of applause at least for our speaker, Kelli Payne. Kelly, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, folks, it's been a fascinating tour today. To tell us about our speaker for next month, we're going to go back to our Cattle Trails Showcase Chair, Lonnie Stephen. Lonnie.
Thank you, Ron. As everybody knows, we kind of rotate these between Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas time has come up, and we're going to Cuero, Texas, to the Chisholm Trail Heritage Museum and Ranching Heritage of Guadalupe Valley on October, would be the second Friday in October. I believe it's the 8th, actually. That's right. October the 8th. And Sharon Weber's the executive director there. I think Sharon at one time was on this, watching this presentation, and it should be a very good presentation, as they've all been, and we really appreciate everybody for taking the time, and Kelly especially appreciate your time, and we promise we won't bother you on a Monday to do this again. So
it would be very exciting, a lot faster pace.
Well, I'll schedule a Monday to come down sometime.
I'd love it.
We'll look forward to being there in person and taking in Stockyards City Cattleman Steakhouse for sure, and seeing a live auction. So thank you very much, Kelly. Thank you, Lonnie. Lonnie's right. Friday, October 8th is our next Cattle Trails Showcase. So join us that day at 10 a.m. To close our program today.
Can I make a comment before we do?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, I know you're all a lot younger than I am, but I grew up in Wichita in the 1940s and 1950s, and we had a big stockyard up in North Wichita. I don't know, of course, I was a young kid and a teenager, so I didn't know a lot about it, nor do I now. But I remember quite vividly one particular aspect of it, and that was as you drove north on Broadway, you get a few blocks up there, you could smell it for blocks and blocks away. And we had and that was a big deal. And I forget now exactly when they took that out of there. It seems to me like it must have been sometime in the mid-50s or so. And of course, they had a big one up in Kansas City as well. But I thought the days of stockyards were gone, except when I lived in Fort Worth for a while. We have that historic one there. So this was real pleasure and brought back some fond memories of my youth. Thanks for this. Excellent program.
Excellent program, no question. And thank you, Gary. A lot of us have memories of those big stockyards, and it's fun to revisit today. So to close our program today, this is Ron Wilson, Fort Larritt, saying thanks for taking time to join us in this place, and come on back next month for our Cattle Trails Showcase. Happy trails, everybody.
See you all. Thank you.